Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to TED Talks Ball. We got a Thursday afternoon edition with Pedro Burge from Down Under. You may know him from Niners DNA or at Pete D. Burge on Twitter. I'm going to have to update the banner to reflect your proper information. But Pedro, how you doing? How's your week been? What, what's going on?
It's been a good week, Ted, and it's been obviously the last look. If you're not a 49ers fan, if you are not in a little bit not shell shocked, but things have come to pass, Ted, that I think we all thought we didn't want to happen. We all thought it could happen, and it has now come to pass. And unfortunately for this organization and for Trey, and it's not just the move that was made. It's just, and we'll get into this later, but just some of the things that happened yesterday that I think shows a very poor management style by Kyle, a very poor EQ. Again, we're seeing his lack of EQ, but the circus rolls on.
There you go. Yeah, it's a crazy week. We'll get to all that. Just real quick, I want to say hi to James Durnall coming to us from the UK. He was just on with me and Aaron.
Hey, James.
Aaron and I normally do Wednesdays at 3:30, but I had family photos yesterday, so we did today at 1. And I didn't even think Pete and I were going to get to go today, but luckily we just had a little miscommunication about time, as can happen between the Bay Area and Sydney, Australia. But we got it sorted out, and here we are. We got CarCast 49ers. He has a YouTube channel. Make sure you check him out. Saying, yo.
Yeah.
Donald Johnson in the house saying, hi, Ted. Hey, Donald. How are you? Raphael562 said, what's up, Ted, Pedro, everyone.
What's up, Raphael?
Raphael, it wouldn't be him if he didn't say like and subscribe, everyone. So that's a good thing to bring up. If you're watching on Niners DNA, make sure you pop over to TED Talks Ball. Give me a like and subscribe. Also, if you're on TED Talks Ball, make sure you pop over to Niners DNA. If you're watching on a browser, open up a second tab. Give us both the watch hours. It really helps us. If you're watching on a phone, if you got a tablet, go to devices. Again, really helps us there. And he says, Kyle completely handled this wrong. Yeah, I think that's one thing a lot of us can agree on, unless you're a really big Sam Darnold fan, which
it's just the thing. Like,
I don't understand that.
I think what we got to, what for me and what I would say is what I'm separating here is I'm not a downer on Sam Darnold in terms of a person. I don't think he's a good football player. I think that's just, I don't think that can be argued in terms of the stuff that he's put down on tape. And I'm not down on Brock Purdy. I love Brock Purdy. I love what he did last year. I'm not sold on him only because, again, we've only seen a very short snippet of him. And obviously I'm big on Trey because of the person that he is, the person that he's shown to be. I think that I'd be really interested to see what happened. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall yesterday when Kyle and Trey had that conversation. I don't know whether Trey, he said, Kyle, as everyone would have heard, Kyle said that, the way that Trey reacted, he's given him a day off. He said, let's have a day off. Now, what was that reaction? Was he crying? Was he emotional? Did he get angry? Did he say, F you, Kyle? I'm not, look what we've strung this out for so long and you signed Sam, and why didn't you just tell me then? So I really want to hear what, when that eventually comes out. There's got to be a book that's going to be written in the next decade about this part of 49ers history, the Kyle Shanahan years, just like the Walsh years. So, and please don't let me, that comment, don't think that I'm comparing those two as being equal. I think, Walsh was a much better coach than Kyle Shanahan and a much better leader. But yeah, it's, and the other things I wanted to unpack too on today's show, Ted, with you and some of the viewers, is that, so I think Nick Wright on Colin Cowherd got it very, very right in terms of the organization and the way that they handled it by putting two defensive linemen, a linebacker and a defensive lineman out there to face the fire from journalists that we're going to obviously ask questions about what had happened. They fumbled around with the answers and what they could give. That puts them in a very uncomfortable position. If my boss sent me into a meeting to answer questions for a thing that he did that was not seen to be the right thing to do by an industry, then I would be very cross with my boss, and I'd probably say, "Why did you put me out there to do that?" So I guess there's probably going to be some unrest in the locker room. That's another thing I'd like to unpack. And then just from the perspective of the wider media, who is going to hold Kyle accountable? So, there's a couple of things there, how Kyle has handled this, why he put a couple of his defensive people out to answer those questions, why he did a pre-recorded, vetted radio interview on KNBR. KNBR holds the rights of the Niners. He's really protecting himself and making sure that he's not being called into line for what he has done. So yeah, I'd love to hear what you've got to say on this. You probably said this a little bit in your previous shows, but I just want to, what's been the interactions that you've had with your community, Ted?
He's hiding. He's lying. He's like a little kid trying to hide his mistakes. It's really disappointing. That's heartbreaking. He came out on Tuesday and he said, well, maybe they'll both be 2-3 and I'm not going to pick either one. And maybe I'll rotate them all season and you just will never know. And, Lance and Darnold have the same agent. I think the agent basically said, no, Kyle, you don't get to have your cake and eat it too. You got to pick one. And he picked Darnold, or he was forced to admit that he picked Darnold because, like you said, I think a lot of us feel like he kind of picked Darnold right from the beginning. I don't think there was ever any competition. I don't think, Kyle ever gave Trey Lance a chance in this whole thing. It's evidenced, by that Raiders game where, there were no run plays for the first three drives. Then a couple run plays to start the fourth drive. What do you know? We scored TD, but the damage was already done to Lance. He already looked bad. And, and like I've been saying, Kyle's been sabotaging Trey Lance. He ran him into the ground in 2021 or 2022, excuse me, this Raiders thing. And then why haven't we seen Lance with CMC? It's like Kyle has specifically kept Lance from being with CMC. And you probably saw me on Twitter with this stupid meme that I've put out there 1,000 times. Thank God I did. I probably my fingers would have fallen off from typing it so many times. That Lance hasn't played with CMC and he's barely played with Kittle. And it's just, and all that remains the same. And it's just like Kyle has predetermined what's going to happen. And basically said, we're too good of a team right now. We are too much win now to develop Trey Lance. I'm like, well, then you damn well better win now. You better win a Super Bowl this season, or else, like I've been telling you all along, I'm a Shanna fan. I think I'm officially not a Shanna fan unless we win a Super Bowl this season. I think I've flipped the script. I used to say we, I'm going to say they from now on, the 49ers. I'm officially no longer like a super fan. Certainly not of Kyle Shanahan. I'll always be a 49ers fan, but Kyle Shanahan kind of lost me with this whole thing. You could kind of see it coming. It was there were things I've been posting that were not that flattering about Kyle and his QB mistakes, that he basically hasn't had a good third round pick that wasn't named Fred. So it was starting to become evident, but the way this whole thing has been handled, it's just so terrible. Like I called the show, Kyle has officially made the worst trade in 49ers history. And it became official as soon as he said that Trey Lance was, the QB3 and up for trade. You're basically admitting this mistake that you invested all this draft capital and you didn't develop the guy. You never even gave him a real chance other than, injury. And it's just, I can understand losing to Brock Purdy, who was there and performed for us last year, but to lose to Sam freaking Darnold, the guy who's got like 90 turnovers and 55 starts, like the guy who sees ghosts, he's not good. He may be better here, but he will never be good. He's not as good as Trey Lance, at least not from what we saw in camp. And it's a farce. It's a sham. it's a fugazi, it's a fake. It's just Kyle is blowing it left and right, and so is Lynch. I mean, every time they open their mouths now, they just say something dumber than the last time, and it's just so heartbreaking and so disappointing. I don't even know what else to say right now.
Well, there's another tweet that I liked about that 49ers Cam Inman, I think, put out, and he was directly referring to the way Kyle has handled this, and you could see he had some footage of John and Kyle on the field, and you could just see the sheepishness in their body language because of what was transpiring that day, and it was almost like they were both conspiring to how they were going to handle this. What I've got to keep, I keep telling myself, Ted, is that, the reason I fell in love with the 49ers was because when I was living over there, 25 years ago, and my boy, the last quarterback to make the Pro Bowl for the 49ers back in 2000.
Jeff Garcia.
He was a tough he was a tough QB, and what this franchise stands for, and the feeling I have with a certain family that I was living with over there, that the girlfriend that I had over there. These are all the things that made me fall in love with San Francisco and the 49ers, and that's what will always have me enamored to that team. And I've got to keep remembering that. Because what it's feeling like is that Kyle Shanahan is coloring my feelings towards the franchise, and it's not about Kyle. This franchise has been going for a very long time, and I guess my advice to anyone who's feeling the same way that I am, in terms of the CEO of this organization is really messing things up, or not running things in the way that, and it's not just down to Ted. It's not just down to because what I think and what you think. It's national media people saying it. It's content creators saying it. It's normal human operations to not handle an organization in this way, So I think we've got to stay strong in terms of, as a fan base for the franchise, for what this team stands for, but really hold him accountable for really hold Kyle accountable for what he's done, because he is not the 49ers. He is one man that's come in and has had the pleasure, had the privilege, had the honor of coaching this team for the last 7 years, and he is not doing the greatest job.
Yeah, and he's kind of bulletproof, because there's this whole section of the fan base that's like, oh, you said something bad about Kyle, oh, you want, Tom Sula, or you want Chip Kelly back. And it's just like, no, I want someone who's going to get a franchise QB and who's going to win a Super Bowl. It's become pretty clear that either the franchise QBs, Kyle doesn't want them, or they don't want Kyle. But either way, we're not getting a franchise QB with Kyle here. No, unless somehow Purdy develops into one. I'm not saying that can't happen. I just don't see it. It doesn't look like, somebody that has a limited arm and limited height and limited top speed running. It's not impossible for someone like that to become a franchise QB, but it's really, really hard. And I just wouldn't bet on it. I just don't see it as of yet. Also, he's very limited in his throwing pattern. If you look at his throwing chart, it's like green down the left alley, yellow down the middle, and red down the right. So it's like he's like the opposite of Zoolander, who couldn't turn left. Like Purdy can only throw left, and they even kind of turn left the same way. They kind of go around this way to turn left. They turn to their right to turn left. And that's exactly how Purdy bails out of the pocket left. So I called him Zooland Purd, which is a little bit mean. But, I was just like, the guy is limited in so many ways. And I like him. I am a Purdy fan. I just like, the idea of Lance's ceiling better. And when I call him mid, it's really not a mean thing to say that a rookie QB was mid. No. It's actually high praise. It's just he was amazing for a rookie, or outstanding for a rookie. But when you compare him to the other quarterbacks, which is what happens when you start to get good, then you get compared to the real quarterbacks. He just doesn't stack up to the top 10 QBs, especially not the top 5. There's just some big differences in size, speed, arm strength. all those things that I just don't see Purdy ever bridging that gap.
And if we think about the way that Kyle treats his quarterbacks, right? You watch the moment that Brock throws a couple of intercepts, starts turning over the ball, he will turn on Brock quicker than in the same rate that he turns on all his other quarterbacks.
Mullins, Jimmy.
Yep, Brock will be the man. Oh, he's the man. He's the real deal. But as soon as, and I'm not wishing this upon Brock at all. I want Brock to win us a Super Bowl, right? I don't know if he can. I don't know if he can under Kyle. But the fact I know that if he starts doing the wrong thing, or if he starts going off script and not doing what he wants him to do, he will turn on him. And that's just the fact. That's what will happen. He doesn't treat his he only does. That's why we don't have. That's why we didn't get Tom Brady. This is why we don't. This is why we don't have the franchise quarterback, as you know, because he doesn't want someone to question his pattern of thinking.
Just like Randy said here, Kyle is the boss. We don't improvise here. Them's the rules.
Yeah.
He wants his mid robots who do as they're told, not, like I said, some franchise QB who's going to think for themselves and improvise and do something off script. No, that is not allowable in Kyle's system. And, it might actually steal some spotlight from him and his massive ego. And God forbid that Kyle should have to share some of the glory with someone who helped him to get where he is. It's just all Kyle and his system. And the system doesn't change. You must adapt to the system. And they even admitted that. They even just said, like, oh, yeah, we didn't adapt the system to Trey Lance. John Lynch said it on the radio. Like, what are you thinking? Like, this is your, it's lunacy. It's sheer lunacy.
What I think, what changed? I agree, James. Someone with an account that doesn't treat when you can see that when a beat reporter like a Matt Maiocco or whoever it may be in the press conferences asks, especially Grant. He gives Grant the stink eye really, really badly. But he looks at them like they're morons. It's like, how dare you question my thinking? How dare you ask me questions that question my way of doing things? And so I agree with what you're saying, James. You're exactly right. There's no real accountability. There's no real respect shown to us fans because we're just guys that that are not as smart as him and don't have the same football brain as him. And so I guess what would probably be the best, what they're hoping for is a sign. Like if they signed Bosa today, that would be their perfect
get out of jail free card.
Get out of jail free card, right?
Yeah. Just nothing to see here, folks. Look, shiny Bosa. We got shiny Bosa. Pay no attention to this pile of steaming poop over here that we just stepped in and created and stepped in again. I mean, it's so crazy. And it's bad. You mentioned Maiocco. It's bad when Maiocco comes out and says something about like, why didn't you guys just announce Darnold, QB2 on Tuesday and not have this whole leak thing happen? I mean, Maiocco is probably the biggest company guy of them all. Him or Lombardi, you can take your pick. And for him to come out against the company line, it's bad. It's really bad when Matt Maiocco says something. Yeah, I agree. Because you brought up his name. I'd meant to, mention it earlier, and I got distracted. And I'm glad you mentioned him again because it jarred my memory, my old memory here. Yeah, I mean, and it's like someone with accountability who doesn't treat with disrespect or treats us with respect. Yeah, it does treat us with respect. Exactly. And Chong Vong had a good one here. Said, man, what a waste of picks. It would have been better to draft Kyle Pitts. At least he would have been used. Kyle Pitts. What about Penei Sewell at right tackle right now? Yeah. We have this massive gaping hole at right tackle. Penei Sewell would be great. Pat Surtain would be great as a cornerback. There were a handful of other linemen in there too. Was Rashawn Slater in that class too? I think he was. in 2021 who ended up on the Chargers as an elite left tackle now, or right tackle. I mean, I would say Micah Parsons, but Micah Parsons is a characterist. We just wouldn't mess with a guy like him. But those types of players, yeah, we could have had instead. People like to beat us up about the first that the Dolphins got, where they got Tyreek Hill, but we couldn't afford Tyreek Hill and Debo. So that I don't feel badly about Tyreek Hill, but Jalen Waddle could have fit on a rookie deal for sure.
That's right.
And Nick Chubb, same thing. We couldn't fit his contract with Bosa's contract or Bosa's impending contract, assuming we're. I mean, if we don't get Bosa signed, then actually we could have had Nick Chubb too. So, gosh, that one comes back into play. But for a while, I was saying a few of those for contractual reasons. You can't really beat us up too much on what the Dolphins did with some of those picks, because we do have this core of highly, top paid guys at right tackle, left tackle, tight end, middle linebacker, Debo, wide back, Juice is the highest paid fullback. We got quite a few highest paid or real close to highest paid in the league at their positions. So you can only have so many of those. And we're already feeling the pain from that of being a little bit top heavy now. I mean, I compared us recently to the Rams, and somebody came out and said something. They're like, oh, the Niners are really top heavy and don't have much depth. I'm like, yeah, I've been saying that's what happens when you have all these super high paid guys. But anyway, I'm kind of getting distracted.
So I'm just reading a tweet here from Rob Stats Guerrera.
Yeah,
it says
he's had some good ones the last few days.
Yeah, he has. I wish he was in the press corps asking questions. But shortly after last season, when Shanahan told Lance that Purdy would enter 2023 as the team's starting quarterback, according to a source, Lance was defiant and told Shanahan he would end up convincing him to change his mind. So does that mean? So reading that, does that mean that there could have been some anger from Trey when he was told when he was QB3? He could have said, you know what?
All I wanted was a fair chance to compete, is what he said.
That's what
before all this started, before OTAs and minicamp. I just want a fair chance to compete. And Kyle said, F you, Trey. You're not going to get it. Sam's the guy. And I'm sure that's what he said to Sam before he even came, to take that low amount of money with the incentives. He's like, oh, yeah, if Brock gets hurt, you'll get a chance to earn those incentives. I guarantee you this is what happened with Kyle. He predetermined it. He doesn't have QB competitions. He pretends to, but he doesn't.
No, because what he thinks is the only way. So, but I mean, the record that, and as Chong has brought up, if you look at the record's just astounding. When he says he's been quoted as saying in 2018, the only quarterback I would have taken and I like in that draft class was C.J. Bloody Beathard over Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. Can you believe that?
I can't. I mean, I can believe Mahomes because he surprised me, but Deshaun Watson won the national championship for Clemson against Nick Saban and Bama, the Crimson Tide, who was the gold standard back then before Georgia took over. So, yeah, I mean, I wanted Deshaun Watson, and if you said we shouldn't take a quarterback, which I kind of understood the logic of, if you don't have good D-line or O-line and you don't have good weapons for them, you could ruin a quarterback. James said that. He said Pat Mahomes would have been Pat Mahomes on this team. F. Kyle. I mean, he still would have been better than any QB we've had since Steve Young. But, yeah, he wouldn't have probably been as good as he is now. But I said, like Solomon Thomas, I said we took the wrong guy from Stanford because CMC went number 9 overall in that draft. Like, imagine if we had CMC this whole time.
Oh, my God. I forgot that CMC was in that draft.
Yeah, number 9.
Solomon
before
Thomas.
Mahomes, and 3 before Sean Watson at 12. So one pick, the pick before Mahomes, literally.
Oh my God. So I'm just trying to read some of these tweets as they're coming out.
Yeah.
What happens if he goes? Just say he goes to Minnesota, right? What happens? Yeah. What happens? And he becomes the quarterback that we think he's going. I'm not saying that he is. I've just got a feeling that he's got the ability to do it. The egg on Kyle's face Do you think he can come back from that?
I don't think so. I think that would be the coup de grace, the final, the straw that broke the camel's back, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I don't think that's Kyle could, especially if, all right, if we win a Super Bowl with Purdy, no one's going to care what happens to Lance. But if we keep coming up short and Trey goes out and balls out, I don't even say he has to win a Super Bowl, but if he just turns into a franchise QB, an elite QB on another team, yeah, that'll be, Kyle will never live it down, and we'll never hear the end of it as fans, and with good reason. You move up heaven and earth to get this guy, and then you don't develop him, and then you rush him out of town after less than 5 starts. It's coaching malpractice. It's organizational malpractice. It's Jed should step in, honestly. But again, Ponsula and Chip Kelly, everybody's so afraid. No one's gonna ever stand. There's no one to say no to Kyle. Nobody.
And the other thing is, and I know I don't want to keep going over old ground, but the tweets that have been coming out of Lombardi is that Shanahan said that 10 days ago, Darnold started to really pull away from Trey Lance, right? You guys were at camp. You guys, and it's not just you. John Chapman was saying it. Jesse Naylor was saying it. Jack Hammer is saying it, right? That Trey is better.
Grant, Larry, everybody who was there.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Why? How are they just? I really want to see someone ask. Okay, so if I was, the question has to be, okay, the consensus coming out of training camp, Kyle, was that Trey was playing better than Sam Darnold. And these are for people that have been covering football for a very long time. You have now said that 10 days ago he started to really pull away. Can you give us some tangible examples of what Sam did to pull away from Trey Lance? What would he say?
Well, you could point to the Raiders game because Sam was better in the Raiders game. But like I said, part of that is the run split. Sam got 9 runs to 8 passes, whereas Trey got 8 runs to 20 passes. And it wasn't just the split. If you had just sprinkled those 8 across the 5 or 6 drives or whatever it was, it would have been probably okay. As long as there was like at least one run in each drive, I think he would have been all right. But to have 3 drives in a row with no runs, it set up Trey for disaster. Kyle sabotaged Trey. He wanted to make it so that Darnold looked better, so that nobody would question him when he said Darnold was QB2, like he had just decided all along. There was no competition. It was It's so clear now that this thing has been predetermined from the jump.
Well, this is it. So now all the people that were saying, where's your tinfoil hat, Ted, and all that sort of stuff, they can. It was happening right before our eyes, and because it was so unbelievable that it couldn't be true, that it turned out to be, an occurrence that sadly was a very underhanded way to make his point the right point, which makes you think that he has got motivations that aren't credible, that aren't
Well, he did it last year. He did it to Purdy last year. He didn't give Purdy any first team reps. He plopped Purdy at QB3, and he was not our third best QB in 2022. So he does this. Kyle just gets it in his head. This is who's who and what's what, and like there's no competition in the QB room. It's whoever Kyle goes in with as the guy. That's the guy. He did allow Purdy to beat out Nate Sudfeld, but come on.
So going back to the issue that I wanted to see if you've heard anything. What do you think? How do you think the locker room is going to respond to this in regard to Kyle putting out a couple of his players to answer the questions? Do you think the locker room? How do you think the locker room is going to respond to that?
I mean, that there's Lance guys in the locker room. Ayuk is a Lance guy.
Yeah,
and he's. I'm going to say I'm pretty sure not the only one. I think anybody who is considered to maybe be a deep threat would be a Lance guy, because Purdy is not a deep threat, and Darnold has the arm for it, but didn't show it at all during camp or preseason. So, but yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And like, I mean, Pete, if you're Trey Lance, do you play tomorrow night?
No.
I mean, do you risk injury
No.
for an organization that clearly
No.
doesn't matter what you do? You're not going to win the job. You may audition yourself so that a team will pony up enough to get you off this team and onto a team that'll maybe start you and or give you an opportunity to grow and not run you into the ground like Kyle did. But yeah, I mean, I said the same thing. I don't play if I'm Trey Lance.
If he said, so the only thing, if I was Trey Lance, I'd say, okay, Kyle, if you really want me to play, then give me an opportunity to beat him out. If you say no, then I'm not going to play.
Yeah. Lance needs to hold Kyle to the fire. But, you know, how can you even trust Kyle at this point? I mean, he's lied. It's you know, I don't even know how you even trust him, even if he says yes.
As you've said, and the Cone Zone was on this morning with Lowell and Grant, and Lowell has been very damning of how, you know, he said the word that he's used the words that you used. You know, he's being juvenile. He used the word weasel. You know, and that's they're quite damning words to talk about. You know, a head coach of an organization, and I'm not saying that, you know, Kyle's a weasel or anything like that. All I'm saying is that he is mishandling a situation that called for very, very strong leadership. And we know that he doesn't have strong leadership within his kit bag. And so it was always going to be a clusterfuck for him to, all the reaction to this. But I can honestly think that, you know, that tomorrow's game will be very interesting in the way that how these guys perform, because this has the ramifications of this decision can be a split locker room.
Yeah, no, it can be, no doubt about it. There were some interesting comments. I mean, Randy was saying he needs to play to prove that he's any good. I mean, a selfish part of me wants him to play and show that he's good, but I just don't think it'll do any good. I just don't want to see him get injured for nothing. And there was an interesting comment about, do we think that Ayuk would want to go with Lance to where Lance gets traded? I don't think the bond is that strong. I don't think he has that kind of power. But I mean, I don't think anybody wants to take a downgrade on teams, and wherever Trey Lance goes, it's almost certain to be a downgrade on teams. The only place I could see where he could go, where it's comparable as far as personnel, would be the Dolphins have a pretty solid squad right now. And they've got Mike McDaniel, who'd probably know how to use Trey. And just the thing is, Ayuk would probably be wide receiver 3 there. But still, he's like the third or fourth option in our offense too. It's not like he's, you know, wide receiver 1 on the 49ers, as long as Debo is healthy. So
I really think that he should go to Minnesota if he gets an opportunity to go to Minnesota, because number one, he's going to get closer to home, right? He needs to be closer to home because I think he's been through the ringer. Let's think about the human aspect of this. You know, he's a young guy that has had a horrible run of luck with injuries. He's been treated, you know, like a dog by his organization. And, you know, getting home to see mum and dad and getting around people, you know, his support, his community of support and friends and family, I think would be the best move.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely grew up rooting for the Vikings and wanted to go to University of Minnesota, but they would only play him as like a linebacker or safety or something. So he held out and went to NDSU because that was the only school that would play him as quarterback. I could see the Vikings for sure. I could see the Dolphins. I could see the Falcons is a team that's been mentioned that is sort of a QB away. They really did some good things this offseason. I mean, Seahawks is another one. I mean, God forbid that we install Russ 2.0 in Seattle. But, you know, that's a possibility, especially I'm sure we'd never trade him to the Seahawks, but if we cut him, then he can go wherever he wants. So if he demands to be cut.
Yeah. Do you think that? Do you think he'll demand to be cut?
I guess it depends on how angry he is and what happens tomorrow. I think I said if I was Lance, I wouldn't play, but I do think he probably will play. I don't think he has a ton of choice in the matter. I think he probably will play. So if he plays really well and Kyle sticks to this Darnold QB2 thing, yeah, he might demand to be cut at that point, and they might not have any choice. As far as, one thing that came out yesterday, I said a few things, yesterday I tweeted some things out. One thing I said was, I'm happy for Lance, assuming, because I thought he would get traded, but obviously that's not happening yet. And I said, I'm sad for the 49ers because I think we made a huge mistake. But another thing I said was, and I don't know if we didn't do a lot of off-season shows, so I don't know if I said this with you, Pedro, but I was saying basically once you decide on your guy between, Purdy and Lance, and you're sure you made the right decision, then you gotta trade the other one away. You can't have these two guys tearing apart the locker room. I just never thought that like one preseason drive that didn't end in a TD was going to be enough to make a decision. But now I find out Kyle made the decision back in the Seattle game when in Seattle, beating them in Seattle. 3 games in, he decided, well, that's enough for me. I made my decision. Just like Jimmy 5 games in, made him the highest paid QB ever. Like it's mind-boggling, baffling, confusing, disappointing, heartbreaking. Just go down the list of adjectives. It's just and when I say the people that Kyle sabotaged Lance, like, well, that doesn't make any sense, Ted. And I'm like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I never said it made sense. It's just, but it's happening. It's sure as day it's happening. So BT says you don't trust Kyle. It's about time you realize that, Ted. I still think you wanted Mac freaking Jones. He was forced to pick. Yeah, Mac is this type for him. It's Purdy, it's Jimmy, it's Cousins, it's Matt Schaub, it's Nick Mullins. CJ is a little different because he had a stronger arm. He was a little more mobile, but like the just kind of the dink and dunker. It's that's and I don't call Purdy dink and dunk. I didn't call him that last year. When Ryan Hensley did, I said I don't call him dink and dunk. I call him limited arm. Limited height, limited top speed, and also this limited throwing chart. Now I've thrown that in there. Only throws to the left. But Purdy was pretty dink and dunk in that preseason game against the Broncos. It was like a couple of screens to Debo with some big yak, a real nice throw to Jennings where he passed up Ayuk short and hit Jennings for the first. It was a very, very nice throw and a very nice slant to Ayuk, but nothing more than like 10 yards in the air. Nothing 20, nothing 30. Because I tell you what, all the long throws that I saw in camp were all short or long. Sounds like he's gotten a little better in some of the closed camp practices, but still throwing interceptions, drop picks, pick sixes, sacks, and there's just I'm concerned about Purdy. I still don't think he's back to 2022 form, and even then, great, you're back to being Jimmy 2.0. We're great. All this to be back to Jimmy.
Going on to what VT has said, if you just go back to what VT was saying about the Mac Jones thing, that'll be another thing that I think will come out. So, for one, I don't know why he didn't see Justin Fields as a way that he could go. But anyway, it's right when John Lynch said that. He's on the plane, drawing up plays for Trey Lance and all that sort of stuff. It's almost like, right, okay, he made that. I don't think he was into Mac Jones. I think he did the same thing that is what he's done with Brock Purdy and Jimmy and Sam Darnold. He makes his decision, and nothing is going to change that. So he's seen Trey Lance at his pro day, or, he's thought about Trey Lance. He's got on the plane and he's drawn up all these plays and he goes, that's it. That's my decision. I'm not changing my mind. I think that's how it happened.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that's exactly what happened. And it's inexcusable.
Yeah. So what did James say, mate, just then?
Let's see. Lance treatment. O-line neglect, drafting duty, Bosa contract, constant injuries, the arrogance of the dude. So far in the hot seat, I want him to feel like he's in a
skillet.
So
this John Lynch reveals how Trey Lance. This is coming from 49ers on CBS. It's saying Trey handled it incredibly well with class. He was devastated, and rightly so. When you put your heart and soul into something, okay. Trey put his heart and soul into this, like almost Shanahan said. Okay. That was from yesterday. I just saw a tweet that mentioned John Lynch, and so I thought that. So it sounds as though he's devastated after finding out. So it seems as though it was more of an emotional response, like a sadder response than an anger response.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been through the whole emotional gamut over the last couple of days. Sad, angry, disbelief. When I first saw the tweet, I was like, oh, they're going for clickbait again. Pelissero and Ian Rappaport, because,
You know what, Sean? I do have to agree. Look, that is probably not a fair characterization. They have paid him some money. They paid him a lot of money, and they did name him the starter. I guess what I'm referring to, Sean, is the way that from the very get-go, that Kyle did not trust his instincts. Listen to the locker room. He had him installed he had a plan to install him for the first season. He didn't do that, so that set up some disappointment for him. So I guess it's not. It's not. He didn't get treated like a dog. He's been treated unfairly, I would say.
Randy says, well, geniuses don't relate to the average person. They're 10 steps ahead of most and are bored by the average person. Put yourselves in genius slippers. They hate you. Fair enough, I guess.
Yeah,
I think Kyle's a genius in some ways, and in other ways, I think Kyle's limited. I think he's got a limited emotional EQ. But yeah, he's got a high IQ. It's just I don't think he's good at reading the room.
And what are we going to do about this O-line, Ted? Like, what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, we got McKivitz, who's a big question mark. Especially people were talking about, oh, Bosa's fine, he missed camp. Well, McKivitz isn't fine. We talked about this last week at the end of our show about how iron sharpens iron, and McKivitz and Trent Williams need Bosa there to get ready for TJ Watt week 1, and also Alex Highsmith. They have 2 great edges on the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then there's like zero depth beyond those guys. You got like Feliciano, Jalen Moore, and I guess Il Manning has separated himself, but maybe that's our 8 linemen. And maybe put Poe and Zakel on the practice squad or something. I don't know. But yeah, the O-line's a mess. There's no depth, and I don't even know that Burford has really made a big step like we all thought he would from last year. I think Aaron Banks probably will, and Brendel probably will, or have. But yeah, right tackle is a big concern, skills-wise and also health-wise. McKivitz was injured quite a bit, or at least in 2022. He got injured against the Rams week 4. First game he came in for Trent Williams.
I want to hear from Sean again. Sean, you seem to be disagreeing with what we're saying, bud. So let's hear. They paid Jimmy the market rate. Didn't even last that long as highest paid, for honesty's sake. Give us your take on what has happened over the last couple of days. Tell us what you think.
But not every QB contract is at the highest rate. Yeah. Just look at this offseason. Daniel Jones didn't get the highest rate. Geno Smith didn't get the highest rate. And neither did Derek Carr from the with the going from the Raiders to the Saints. All three of those guys were below the highest. So you don't have to pay them the highest rate. I'm sorry. You pay the best guys the highest rate. You pay the other guys other rates. Jimmy G, $23 million. He got less than any of those guys. The lowest paid. Jimmy G is the lowest paid multi-year veteran contract QB in the NFL. So yeah, you don't have to pay him top dollar. That's a cop out.
I think what Sean's relating to is the fact that we mentioned that he made Jimmy the highest paid quarterback after 5 starts.
He did.
Yeah, we did.
It's facts.
Yeah.
And it was a mistake. We've been paying for it every year till this year.
Yeah. I just want to hear Sean. I just want to hear what Sean has to say about how Kyle has handled the situation over this off season. How do we know Kyle wasn't lying about drawing up plans for Lance? Could be for Mac Jones again. Can't trust Kyle. You're right.
I don't trust him. The trust is broken with Kyle for sure.
Yeah, Purdy injuries end of season. That's right. That has been the most common thread through all of Niners Twitter. If Purdy gets injured, our season is done. It's done.
Yep.
I would much
unless Purdy and Darnold get injured and then you get Lance.
Well, this is the question, right? This is the question. For me, and this is my heart on heart, this is my hand on heart, if Purdy got injured and it was Trey coming in, I would be more comfortable with our season being okay than if Sam Darnold goes in. That's hand on heart, 100%. That's my belief. All right, here. Kyle totally deserves criticism on this on both sides, but people seem to go to the extreme. He's not perfect, but he's not atrocious either. Too many people make a list of just pros or cons and not both.
I mean, pros is like practically everything. The cons is QBs and third round picks not named Fred.
Yeah, and quarterback is the most important position on the team, and
in professional sports.
That right. He's not got that right. He cannot evaluate quarterbacks. Well, sorry, he evaluates quarterbacks on the premise that they will do what he says, and then they're a little bit mild and they're a little bit meeker in their personality type.
James asked if the fumbles were from center and they're the backups, James. Brendel did a good job with the snaps, but everybody not named Brendel was atrocious with their bad snaps. And that was why when Lance had the fumble in Vegas, I tweeted that. I was like, well, Lance fumbled, but it very well might have been the backup center's fault because they were terrible with snapping. Just like Brunskill was terrible at it last offseason when he was competing with Brendel. And they're like, oh, it's a competition. I'm like, not if Brunskill can't snap the damn ball. That's the first thing a center has to do is snap the ball. Then you have to block. But it doesn't do any good if you can block and you can't snap the ball to the quarterback. Sorry.
Who was our center in 21? I'm trying to think of his name.
Well, he got hurt and he barely played. And then there was Garland. No. There was Garland who played in the Super Bowl. And then he played in 21.
And he had the bad sweat.
20 was Garland. Ben Garland got injured. 21 was, it was Alex Mack.
Yeah, the sweat problem.
He was just old. He was just at the end of his rope, but he was a very good pass blocker and a little too old for really good run blocking. But Alex Mack was a very solid center.
That's one thing
and we had the one in 2019 until he got injured in New Orleans from the Giants, who had the patellar tendon injury, never came back from it. There's another B name. Blanking on it.
I'm a big pay for play guy. I know that's never going to happen, but it should. I don't understand what that means.
I'm not exactly sure. It's probably a little bit old here. Oh, isn't it like Bounty Gate? Oh, geez. Let's not get into that. Real quick, we got Ryan from No Border Sports in the house. What's up, Ryan? For those of you who don't know, Ryan and I are doing a weekly Tuesday 3:30 show. No BS Ted. It's good stuff. Great guy. Very helpful. Helping me to do better titles and thumbnails and all that good stuff, and sharing lots of good creator knowledge. So thanks again for that, Ryan.
Nice.
Saying what up to James.
What is
hi. I think Kyle's bad at evaluating QBs. He mucked it up, but I think he's done many things well. Built a great roster and had us winning. No, I mean, yeah, that's what I said. He's a genius besides everything, besides QB. And now, kind of telling the truth and giving people a fair shot. He's not really a genius with that. But it's us all around QB. It's still the same thing.
What about Roche? Roche, your man, what's he been thinking about this stuff? Is it Roche that you're talking? I think we need to look at the pros and the cons, not just focus on one side. Yeah, I get what you're saying, Sean. You got to take a look at the bigger picture side of things. He has done a lot of good things for the organization. He has had a good winning record in the last 2 years, right? But if we look at the winning record over, what is it? Is it over is it 55%?
Yeah, about 55%.
So anyway, Sam was mid-level, mid this camp. So he was there, was he? No Border?
No, he wasn't. He's going off of reports. He lives up in Washington State, so. But would have loved to have met him if he was.
He's traded for great players.
So this is another thing. Kyle's done great. Absolutely, he's done a great job with coaches. His tree is growing. He's backfilled coaches really well. He's picked really great leaders of men. Whether it's Sala or D'Amico. Hopefully, Wilkes will follow in that vein. But I just don't feel like he's the greatest leader. I think he exhibits a lot of qualities that aren't great leader qualities, including, kind of the basic one, which is stand up to criticism to block your team from it. If something goes wrong, it's my fault. If something goes well, hey, it's the team did great. You duck praise to share that with the team. Yeah. And that's one thing that I've never thought Kyle did particularly well. Can't taste the sweet without the sour. No, that's true. You don't know. Without the lows, you don't appreciate the highs. I agree with that. I just don't know that Kyle can get us to the highest of the highs. That's my question. I'm wondering if this sort of mid robot QB with this great roster can do it. Because so far it hasn't. And so far QB has held us back. One of the biggest things.
So what
you said before, this is a cop-out, Sean, because we've had options. We passed on Mahomes. We passed on Brady when he wanted to come retire here before he went to the Bucs. Didn't get Stafford. So, yeah, I mean, they don't grow on trees, but they kind of have – the trees have been growing to Kyle, and he's been, chopping them down. So, and maybe they've been saying no. Like I said, maybe Kyle doesn't want them. Maybe they don't want Kyle. But whatever it is, it's not happening. We're not getting experienced QBs that want to come play for Kyle or that he wants to come play for him. And so it's a negative situation. I don't know what else to say.
There's a coach down under Ted called Wayne Bennett. Yeah. He is known as what the hell?
I think maybe his kid got a hold of his keyboard or something.
He is known for he will protect his players at all costs. Alex Mack, that's right. He will protect his players at all costs, and that's what good leaders do. So and he is not a guy that I think wants to, as we've alluded to, if things go wrong, he doesn't want to put his hand up, and that's the first thing a good leader does.
Yeah, and Sean says it's really hard to win. I get it; it's hard to win, But we've had a Super Bowl roster for 4 full seasons now, so it's not as hard to win like that. And people like to compare Kyle to Andy Reid, and it's like, yeah, Andy Reid was Kyle until Kyle passed on Mahomes. So I mean,
well, that's right. When Reid got Mahomes, he started winning Super Bowls. That is the perfect analogy right there. Reid is a great coach. He didn't win a Super Bowl.
Couldn't get it done. Choker.
Until he got
all these championships. Got to one Super Bowl, lost. Yeah, it was a longer period of time, but it's the same idea. Everybody just thought, he can't get it done. He can't get over the hump. Kyle passes on Mahomes. Reid, I'm not saying Reid identified Holmes because he didn't. Like, they had to talk him into it. But he listened, and they got him, and he developed him, and he didn't feed him to the wolves, and he, let him be himself. He didn't say, this is going to take away from my system. If I let Patty Mahomes be Patty Mahomes, you let him play. And look what you got. One of the greatest QBs to ever play now. Up there with the GOATs already in just a few years.
So the question I've got for you, Sean, and we probably need to wrap it up soon, but
yeah, we do.
Is that, do you think, Sean, that Kyle would willingly take a Tom Brady, an experienced quarterback that would question him and question his playbook and his system? Do you think that's what? Yes, that's what I'm saying. Let's see Kyle with a QB. I don't think let's see. He hasn't done it, Sean. He won't pick them. He will pick the guys that'll do what he says. Well, then he should go get one. I agree, Sean. He should go get one. But he's not. He has found himself not to be doing it. And there's been countless occasions in which he has not done that. And he keeps on going with the guys that will do exactly what he says. Put the ball where I say, throw the screen. I don't want to go down the path where I continually bash Kyle because he has done some good things. The fact is that he's not getting the quarterback to win him a Super Bowl. That's the fact.
Yeah, and you need a franchise QB to win a Super Bowl. There's a few notable exceptions. You got your Foles, your Dilfer, your Brad Johnson, your Jim McMahon. You're talking about 4 in the last 40 plus, almost 50 years. So if you think 1 out of 10 is good odds, then okay, great. We maybe have a 1 out of 10 shot of doing it with a mid-robot QB. But it's also a different game now, and it really favors the quarterback. The rules, the quarterbacks are protected, so are the wide receivers. It's not the same game where you win with defense and run like you used to. And I do see some brilliance in Kyle. One thing I will say to Kyle's credit, if you want a pro for Kyle, here's a pro. It's good to zig when others zag. So in a passing league, there is some value to being a running team because most teams are not built to stop the run. If everybody's spending on, QBs and O-line and wide receivers, if you skimp on those areas, then you are going to have, lots of money to spend on other areas where other people aren't spending, like defense and, whatever else, running backs and, whatever, what have you. So you can kind of zig when others zag. I do see some brilliance in that. I just think that, like, if it's franchise QBs are so hard to find, why not try to develop the one you've already got? You've got one that has these traits. Eric Crocker had this clip that I've been putting out there, where he said basically none of the other QBs on this roster can touch Trey Lance if he plays like he played against the Broncos with some more consistency, which will probably come with reps. Nobody can touch him. And that's the thing. And it's just like, how long will it take? I don't know, but it's worth investing at least another year or two to see what we can do. And because, if he gets anywhere close to his thing, he's going to smoke Brock Purdy. I'm sorry. Even if Brock improves a little bit, which is possible.
Yeah, let me finish with this, because I've just seen a tweet here from at 49ers Sports Talk. So at 49ers Sports Talk has just said, the pattern of messing up isn't only at the quarterback position. The 49ers paid D Ford Bank, drafted Solomon Thomas, drafted Nick Bosa, thank you to Arizona, traded Buckner, drafted Kinlaw, let DJ Jones walk and paid immensely for Hargraves. So, let's not.
Also let DJ Reed get out of the building.
That's right. So let's not, think that it's just the quarterback.
Yeah, it's not just the quarterback. There have been other things. Those are just the big glaring ones that are easy because they've happened so many times where it becomes brutally obvious. But anyway, thanks everybody for coming. We appreciate you. If you're on my channel, make sure you pop over to Niners DNA. Give Pedro a like and subscribe. At Pete D. Burge on Twitter. Give him a follow. Same thing if you're on Pedro's Niners DNA. Come on over to TED Talks Ball. Give me a like and subscribe. And we'll see you all next week. It'll be Thursday, 2:45 Pacific, 5:45 Eastern, and 7:45 a.m. Sydney, Australia time.
See you guys.
Peace, everybody. Go Niners.